Welcome to The Roll Call, the podcast where we dive into the roles that define us. I'm your host, John Glahn. On each episode, we explore the journeys of people discovering their true roles in life, business, and beyond. Get ready for inspiring conversations about finding purpose and authenticity. Let's roll the roll call. And welcome to The Roll Call. I'm John Glahn. I have with me Jim Heller, Vistage Chair extraordinaire of the past 7 or so years, and has been associated with Vistage for close to 30. So he knows a thing or two about Vistage, the CEO peer group that I've been a part of for a number of years. And I've been excited to have him on for a long time to help share his story and help share with others how he can help. So all are here and accounted for. Welcome to The Roll Call.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So for everyone else's, I've referenced Vistage plenty of times in these, and to kind of put it in a very simple context, right? Vistage is a CEO peer group, and also other leadership folks within companies as well. And in that methodology, they have what we call chairs, and those are the ones with a great deal of experience and a great help first mentality to help leaders, CEOs specifically, within their personal lives and in business. So, Jim, what I love to start with is, how in the heck did you get here?
Great question. So I grew up in a family business, and I swore that I would never work in that business. Not because I didn't like it, but I was going to go do something else. Family was in the machining. My family has been in machining since the early 1900s. And so I ended up getting an engineering degree, went to work for General Electric. I was in their manufacturing management program. My vision was I was going to go do that as a career and see where that took me. About a year and a half into the program, I figured out that my values and GE's values didn't align. And around the same time, the generation ahead of me in the business wanted to buy a company and called and asked if I wanted to come and run it. So after saying I wouldn't do it at 22 years old, I moved back to Michigan and took over running a business. I was 22, and the average age of the people working in the business was probably 40.
Yeah.
And so I ended up being in the company for 32 years after that.
But you didn't want it, so it's fine.
Right. Yeah. And had a number of roles, integrated that business into the parent company. Anyway, about 10 years into my time at the company, it became clear that I was going to be asked to be the successor to lead the business. And the company had grown dramatically, and I was trying to figure out how to prepare myself. I thought about going to law school. I thought about getting an MBA. And we were part of a trade association that had, once a year, we'd get together and get a chance to talk to other people doing similar things around the country. And I found that to be incredibly valuable. I'm an empirical learner. I can read and do all of that, but I do better if I'm talking to people. And so around that time, somebody out of our trade association here in Detroit told me about this thing called TAC. And basically what it was is an opportunity to get together once a month with people and learn from one another and share stories and combat, the isolation that comes with being in the leadership role. So I joined. I was a member for 8 years. TAC became Vistage. I ended up firing myself as CEO of our company and bringing somebody in from the outside. It was the biggest single investment I had, and I wanted the most qualified person I could find to run it. And if that wasn't me, I was okay with that. And so when I fired myself, I left the group, but I stayed in touch with my chair. And we ended up selling the company. And when we started talking about selling the company, my chair said to me, "So, all right, so what are you going to do next?" And I said, "Well, I'm in an employment agreement, and I like the business. I'll stay." And he looked at me and he said, "You're not going to stay."
Yeah.
And he had been through the same thing.
Yep.
And I said, well, yeah, I am. He's, no, you're not going to stay. And I had other friends that said the same thing. So long story short, he started a process with me of figuring out what I wanted to do. And lo and behold, about a year and a half after we sold, it was time for me to move on. And I had decided I was going to become a Vistage Chair.
Hmm.
So took about 6 months I wanted to fulfill my commitment to the people that had bought the business. So I started building my group in January of 2020,
Ooh.
about 8 weeks before we all got sent to our rooms. And so that was interesting. But 7 years later, here I am, and I never imagined I could have this much fun working. People say you're retired, and I say yes, I'm retired, and I work full time.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing what I want to do. And I get to work I interface with almost 30 companies every month at different levels. Um, it's really humbling watching what they do, and I really appreciate that they let me in and they ask my opinion, and I get to connect people, and it really is the most fun I've had working. So
That's
that's how I
great.
ended up here.
Love it. So oddly enough, this is called the roll call. And so I love talking about roles and the fact that, and I could go through your whole history at the company. But I want to talk about the fact when you said I fired myself as the CEO. How did that go? Talk about what it went on in here and what went on externally to come to that point. Not people have the courage to do that.
It was the most selfish thing I've ever done in my life.
Huh.
I figured out, so the generation ahead of me had built a business. Businesses go through predictable life cycles. And the generation ahead of me had built a business. We were single customer reliant. We were single product reliant when I took over. And the bottom line was that even though I'd grown up around the business, I know how to run a business intellectually. I know how to run a business. I'm not built to do that. And it got to the point where I felt like it was going to kill me if I kept doing it. And I was putting everybody at risk. And so I just kind of, I remember where I was sitting. I sat in my office and thought, this is silly. And there's got to be somebody out there that can run this. And actually, it's a long story that I won't go into, but because of Vistage, I found the guy that could help us, and he agreed, and he and I ended up becoming partners. He was the CEO, and I was head of business development. He was really great to work with. I learned a ton from him. He made decisions, but he included me in virtually all of them. I mean, we acted like partners, and it all worked out.
So what is it that you think you didn't, what made you think you weren't the right one?
It honestly has to do with my tolerance for anxiety. And I'm much more tolerant now. And I don't know, actually, at this point, I might make a different decision today, but at that point in my life, there was just, I knew what needed to be done, but I didn't know how to do it. And I was fortunate enough, I was blessed to find somebody that did. And we were in a position where the bank wasn't bothering us, but I could see that in 6 or 8 months they would be. And I just felt like somebody else could do about it. It's a really, you know what, nobody's ever asked me that question. It's a really good question. But the best way for me to answer it is I've always felt like I'm a much better number 2 than a number 1. And maybe maybe in EOS terms, maybe I'm more of an integrator than a visionary.
Mm-hmm.
And so, um, yeah, I
Yeah.
decided that, you know what, this is the right. There were some other dynamics in the family and ownership and that kind of stuff that
Mm-hmm.
had um, had some things that played into it as well. But
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah. I think one that takes obviously a great deal of um, self-discovery, self understanding, right? To recognize that. And like I said, not many people are willing to set aside their ego and pride, you name it, to make that kind of a move. Many people, that's their identity, is the one. Right? It's intoxicating, can be to
sure.
some, and I just applaud you for having that courage to do that. Because I think people could probably make up all kinds of different stories of different words to use, but to me, I think there's courage in that. Because you didn't run either. There are people that do that, but then run, right? You still stayed and walked along with it. So how long did you work in that partnership?
Let's see, 12 years.
Wow. So
No,
even more so.
Yeah, 12 years.
Wow. And that's, gosh, another lesson in letting go.
Yes, and then I learned another lesson when we sold it.
Okay.
That was interesting. I had watched my dad. So my dad and my grandfather started the company, and I watched my dad. The business was his identity. It was his identity until he passed away.
Yeah.
And at the time he passed away, he had been out of the company for 20 years. But he had a really hard time. He never really did let go.
Mm-hmm.
And so I stood there and watched that. And I am not going to let the business become my identity. Good luck with anybody. Good luck to anybody that really, I tried.
Mm-hmm.
And I did some things, some discrete things to try and prevent that, but you can't avoid it. And it's not even the business, it's our professional, it's our profession. And when we spend so much time doing it, that it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a good 3 years, maybe 4, after I left to break that. And in all honesty, now my identity is that of a chair. It's still not me as a person, but I've made that shift where I don't think of myself as much anymore as it relates to the business. Somebody asked me one time, somebody in my family actually made the observation, because I made the comment that I wasn't built to be a CEO. And the observation that was made was, if you've ever seen the movie The Blind Side, at the end of the movie, when Michael Orr is being interviewed by the lady from I think it's the NCAA, and he finally says to her, "Well, you never asked me why I wanted to go to Ole Miss." And she said, "Okay, why?" And he says, "Because that's what my family does." Well, that's where I was. I had, my dad, my grandfather, 2 older brother-in-laws and an older brother who are 15 to 20 years older than me. That's what I grew up doing.
Right.
And so that's just what we did. And so there you have it.
Yeah. And it's not often that again, that decision can be made by an individual to have that kind of foresight. How long had you been in Vistage before, or I assume it was before that move, right?
Yeah, 8 years.
Yeah.
I was in Vistage for 8 years. And there's no question that my chair and my group helped. I don't think I ever I honestly don't think I ever took it to the group as an issue, but all the learning and all the stuff that had taken place over the years helped contribute to that. So
Yeah, and I want to yes, I get to shamelessly plug you here, but at the same time, Vistage in general, or peer groups, but Vistage in particular, because different groups do different things, right? There are different groups, but what I love about Vistage is there's a couple different dynamics in there. You have your chair, right? Who is the one with the experience that meets with you more regularly, knows your business intimately, again, has the experience to bounce things off. And again, all of them, not all are alike and not all of them have the same amount of experience. But then you have the group, which is your trusted group. Again, depending on sizes, 10 to 20 or whatever it might be. But I want to tie it back to something you said very early on in this, which is where most owners don't have anywhere to go. So I'm, imagining if you sitting in that seat that you were in yourself and your family business. And so who's supposed to take over? Well, whoever's the one that's there to take over, whether they want it or not, whether they're qualified or not. That's just how it just kind of happens. And so that, and so how lonely that could have would have been, without that kind of a group. That's the power of the group in the chair, right? To help you see things you don't see, learn things you would never have known.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. One of the greatest lessons I learned from my chair that I use now was he taught me how to, and he did it by example. We would talk about something, or he would listen to me, and then he would pull the themes out. He'd say, okay, these are the 3 or 4 themes that I hear. And it was that having somebody, one step removed that could listen for the undercurrent of what was going on, just proved really valuable. And I'm really thankful that I'm still not as good at it as he was, but I'm getting there, and it's a muscle. The more you use it, the better you get. But it was really helpful.
Yeah, because I would venture a guess, because this is probably, 90-95% of businesses go this route because they don't have a third. They're going at it alone. Would you say do you think you suspect you'd still be in that business, or do you think you might be dead if you didn't make that change?
I could very well be gone.
Yeah.
I could very well be gone. Yeah, the stress just it wasn't healthy. And, I joke, the gray here showed up in my 40s.
Yeah, I hear you.
But I was almost this gray by the time I was in my mid 40s. And I attribute a lot of it to stress, but anyway.
Well, no, again, I love highlighting and leaning into it because it again, most people only see what they see the glamour of, or, maybe they have a pool or cars or house or all those things, or perceived, and they don't understand what's really happening, no matter, even if it is that.
The price that people pay for the stuff is more than money.
Yeah.
My brother used to say, there isn't any job that's worth, and this was back in the late 90s, he used to say, there isn't any job where the work itself is worth more than about 35 grand a year, or 40, pick a number, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Everything over that is aggravation pay.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was pretty accurate. And you know what, having said all of that, and I've said this from when I started working to become a chair, I couldn't do what I do if I hadn't gone through all of that stuff.
Right.
I look back on different things that happened. I jokingly tell potential members that I've made a lot of really expensive mistakes in my life. And if I used to think that if I could help people avoid them, it would be valuable. What I've learned as I've gotten older is that without pain, there's no lesson. So people sometimes have to go through it. But what was really valuable for me was having people that stood next to me while I was in pain and, would say, this isn't going to kill you. It's going to hurt, but it's not going to kill you. You're going to be okay. and you'll come out the other side. And that was that. Again, I've been really fortunate to have some really solid folks that helped me with that.
Oh, that's and that's great, and that's the lesson of not being alone, right? Our roles, and that not being alone can take many different forms, right? But I also want to highlight something else. Is I've heard some similar stories, not in as positive of a light, but when someone did back out, or it was perceived as someone failed, and maybe they were removed, or maybe they removed themselves, and the comments that are made about them as a leader, and that kind of a preemptive move shows an immense amount of leadership, right? You're not the leader anymore, but that shows an immense amount of leadership, right? So you don't have to be the head one to be a leader.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. So fast forwarding to, you said you did some things to figure out what you wanted to do. What was it that made you realize and think that this chair thing was going to be a thing?
I was involved I was responsible for business development for the business. And our customers increasingly were actively discouraging personal relationships. We were in a highly engineered. We did ultra precision machining and finishing. We were finishing fuel injector components within clearances of microns, and
right.
And in an environment like that, you need to have solid relationships, particularly with the engineers, even more so with the engineers than the purchasing folks. And our customers really discouraged that. It was very frustrating. It makes it hard to do your job, and you end up wasting a ton of time. So, and it got to the point where 5 of my top 6 customer contacts either quit or got fired in a 6-week period. All completely different companies.
Wow.
I mean, it was just bang, bang, bang. And so that's when I went to the owners and I said, the other thing that was happening was our customers were churning in pursuit of not allowing or not encouraging the relationships. They would churn people. So they would, they wouldn't let anybody be in a purchasing role for more than 18 months. They'd move them on. Well, we just about get them trained, and then they'd be, or educated, I should say, and then they'd be moved on. And I was at a point in my life where I'm like, I don't want to train this group of people again. I know that what I'm going to be doing in 18 months, and I'm not getting any younger, and so on and so forth. So as part of my discernment process of what to do, I figured out that being a chair allows me to develop really deep relationships with people. And oh, by the way, I don't have to work with anybody I don't like. And it sounds really selfish, but that was it. So
wow.
And there were a couple other things that happened that led me to it, but those are really the big things. And my groups haven't grown maybe as fast as some other chairs might, but part of that is because I am picky about who I work with. I had an experience as a member where we had somebody in our group that was destabilizing. And my chair, who was one of the top 3 influences in my life, I loved him dearly. It took a while before that got corrected. And I watched what happened, what it did to the group. And I just said, as a chair, I'm not going to do that. At least not intentionally. Can I have a lapse in judgment? Absolutely. Can I put somebody in that doesn't fit? Sure. But I'm not going to knowingly just take people to fill a group. It doesn't work. The group isn't sustainable. People, it's like in a business. If you tolerate C players, the C players aren't the ones that leave. The A's leave first. And the same thing, it's group dynamics, it's
Yeah.
culture, it's all of that stuff.
No, absolutely. Hey, real quick, Jim, can you see me?
No, I can't.
Okay. I'm going to shift something here and change my camera for some reason. Must be retrograde or some crazy nonsense here. I'm going to move you down here.
Now you're back.
Yep. And there we go. So now I'm back.
Cool.
So yeah, I think that's a very valid point, because now hopefully I'll remember to come back to the other point I was kind of trying to make, but to the point of, in such an environment where the draw is the group, the draw is the fact that, you're paying a decent amount of money, one, to get your expertise as a chair, but you're just a portion of the value, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's the group that allows you to be vulnerable, to make sure that you can, be yourself, say your true issues, because it takes a long time for a lot of people to actually get down and be honest about what ails them, right? In a business, because again, most business owners, well, most humans, right? They have a shell out in front of them about who they want people to see, and certainly in a business atmosphere, I've been around enough of them now, and I've been guilty of it, to where, it's the vanity of, oh, how big's your company, or and so it's not easy for people to say when they really need help, and that's the real opening in Vistage, and where people can actually grow is by doing so. And if you're around people that you can't open up to, then you're just wasting money and actually dragging everyone else down.
Yeah.
So I think that's that's interesting too, on the relationship side of where you caught that in yourself, that well, one, you got to put yourself in a position in the other company to be that business development person, but recognizing what truly I feels like gives you energy.
Oh, absolutely. It's funny, at Chair World. So the chairs, there's a conference every year for all the chairs, and we all get together. A couple of years ago, we had Marcus Buckingham speak to us, and he wrote a book called Love and Work, and he cited research that said if you spend 20% of your day doing something you love, your chances of burnout drop by some phenomenal number. And what was interesting is if 20 becomes 30 or 40, that percentage doesn't change very much. So it's almost like a step function, like you have to spend 20% of. And when I first started doing this, I thought, oh, this is great. I can schedule myself so that I have 2 weeks a month where I'm, don't have anything going on, and I can do, whatever. That was a disaster. And actually, when Marcus presented to us, I'm like, all right, I'm doing this wrong. So now I know now I have to get out of the house every day. If I'm home too long in my own head, that's a really bad place for me to be. So I make sure that I have at least one member meeting or candidate meeting or something every day, so that I can get out and talk to people. And you're right, it energizes me. It's absolutely noticeable.
I will, I'll share too. So in my Vistage Chair, the great Bob Holland, who has been around a hot minute, and most would argue, most people are retired by his age, many years in, and again, I've been with him for almost 9 years, and it's just this amazing thing. We're all like, well, when is this going to stop? Because you look, he's very meticulous and planned, and his planner is always full. He's always out and about, and it is just always, it's one of those things. It's floored me and many folks, like, how in the world can you do this? You have more energy than we do, and we're half your age. And so that's the true sign of, and I'm hearing it from you, that one, you love what you're doing and damn good at it.
The way I describe it is I like to say, I get to do this.
There you go.
This is something I get to do.
So maybe let's lean in a little more about what it is you do get to do.
So, well, I facilitate the groups. As you probably described, they're non-competitive, so we don't allow competitors in the groups. We discourage customer-supplier relationships, significant customer-supplier relationships. So I facilitate those meetings. And then I spend an hour and a half with everybody in between meetings talking about what they want to talk about and holding them accountable, things that they want to be held accountable for, and then giving them feedback on things that I see where I think that might be blind spots for them. If they're, if we're talking about the same thing we were talking about 15 months ago, and there hasn't been a lot of movement, and there are things within their control, it's going to be, all right, it's Dr. Phil, right? How's that working for you? It's not. So what can we do differently? And the group holds people accountable also. To me, that's a sign that the groups are working really well, is when a group will look at somebody and say, you know what, we love you, and we've been watching you struggle with this for a long time. What are you willing to do to change it? And how can we help you? So, helping people make decisions, holding them accountable, because as CEOs, who do we have that holds us accountable for strategic initiatives, right? Our customers hold us accountable for tactical stuff. You need to deliver by this date, or we have to meet these requirements, or whatever. But customers and your bank, if you've got debt, your bank is holding you accountable for making payments. But if you need to open up a particular business line because 3 years from now it's going to make a difference, nobody's asking you about that.
No.
A, they don't know. B, they don't understand. And C, they probably don't care unless they're a customer and it affects them. So that's a role that we, meaning myself and the group, play for people. When somebody says, and I've had it happen a number of times, when somebody says, I have nowhere else to go with this, those are the magic words of a group, right? That means that the trust is there, that they're willing to open up, and something good is going to happen. So,
and you just made a point that I was going to circle back to, which was the not just the lonely part that we talked about, that we're the one as the owner, the leader, generally making all the decisions or whatnot. Yeah, who is the one holding us accountable, other than maybe who we come home to, a spouse or something?
Right.
But from a business perspective, right. We can tell all of our employees to go pound sand if they ask us what we're doing, right?
Right. Right. The other way I describe it is, we all have attorneys and accountants, and they're competent. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made it. But their advice is parochial by definition. They have, the lawyers have to give us legal advice. The accountants have to give us accounting advice. But the CEO has to take all of the constituencies into account. And so being able to walk into a room that's full of other people that understand what it means to be, it's not or. So one of the best speakers I've heard, and one of my favorite topics currently, there's a guy who speaks to Vistage groups. His name is Chalmers Brothers. I don't know if you've ever had him speak to your group or not. You would remember him if you saw him. He, depending on how old you are, he either looks like Mark Twain or David Crosby. Anyway, Chalmers is one of my favorite speakers and one of my favorite people in the world. And his, for a long time, his primary discussion was around communication, which is incredibly important. However, one of his current offering is on polarities, which is the foundation of strategic thinking. Um, and polarities are based on two interdependent things that have to exist at the same time. So it's not, do I take care of my customer or do I take care of my employees? It's not or, it's
Yeah.
and how do you do that? And so things like that are a lot of what we deal with in the group setting and even in the one-to-ones. Um,
Mhm.
so again, I'm lucky. I get to um, show up to one-to-ones, and my favorite one-to-ones are when I walk in and the members got a list of 5 things they want to talk about. It's like, these are bothering me. This is what's keeping me up at night. Let's figure it out.
Yeah, and actually, boy, there's so many points I want to make here or help lead to. But the first one is what you just mentioned. And I look through the seasons that I've had in my entrepreneurial journey, and then couple that with my Vistage journey, with Bob. And, for everyone's sake, right, there's, you either prepare for the meeting and you get something out of it, or you just show up. And what I mean by that is, Bob, I still got something out of that meeting, because that's, again, what, as chairs, right, you're attuned to asking questions and really digging in. But I think I could probably overlay that with the performance of my business and the performance of my personal self, my stress, everything else, when I didn't take the time to prepare for that meeting, because it was just having some coffee and whatever, versus when I actually take the issues tracker or the prep work that Bob gives me and actually put thought into it to actually get something out of it. I think that a lesson in anyone who is entering into a mentorship relationship or anything where they have a third party helping, if you don't put the prep work in to get something out, you're going to get a fraction of the good out.
Agreed. There is one tangent to that, though, that I'd point out, and I'm sure you resonate with this. What's interesting, and frankly, this is the way I looked at it. I was in machining, and my chair had come from the training industry. He was very creative, and he had spent years developing training manuals for other businesses and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When I first met him, I thought, what can a guy that, from the training business help me with machining, manufacturing, whatever? Boy, was I wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I said he probably top 3 influential people in my life. But what also is amazing is when issues are presented at the group level, I like to go around afterward and ask, okay, what did you get out of it? What did you get out of it? Because almost every single issue that's presented, everybody gets something out of it, either something immediately actionable, or it makes them think about something a different way, or whatever. And it's hard to describe until you've been through it. But
you raise a good point. We all bring different levels of experience and expertise, because actually a seemingly dumb question from someone who doesn't have the experience can unlock so much else from someone who does, in a completely different environment, completely different industry.
And the other thing I like to say is, you never know who's in the room. We had a situation a few years back where one of the members had somebody that owed them a bunch of money, and it came up to the group.
Mm-hmm.
And so the member put it out there. Another member pipes up and says, I spent 4 years doing commercial debt collection.
Huh.
You should be asking these questions. You should be watching for these things. And oh, by the way, if you want, I'll go visit this company with you and help you. Now, the person that said that was in a completely different industry. We had no idea. But, boom. Okay. Oh. It was really cool.
Beautiful. I do want to go back because we didn't really, you just brought up a speaker, but again, part of the other power or portion of what, our group sessions, roughly once a month, is we have a speaker at the beginning, which again is different, and again, different people within the group have different experience or in certain things. So, I think it's wonderful how creative as a chair need to be to bring in relevant speakers, because it's not like Vistage just sends out like, here's the calendar, you get the speaker this week, etc. You as the chair actually curate and pick that.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah. So Vistage has 45,000 members worldwide. We have our own internal speaker bureau. Every speaker gets evaluated by everybody that attends their presentation, and all of that data gets put into a database. So when I'm looking to bring speakers in, I can see how many times they presented, what their average scores are. I can see the comments that were made, and it allows us to be really selective. So we very rarely get speakers that don't resonate. At the same time, picking the speakers, I poll the group and I ask them what they think, but there are also times where I know, just because I've talked to everybody, that there's a need for this, and so let's get somebody that can address that need. Or there's something that people are avoiding, and all right, let's put a speaker in here to kind of put it in front of everybody to remind them that they need to deal with whatever the topic is. So yeah, we're really fortunate to have, like, I generally won't bring in anybody that hasn't presented at least 100 times. On the other end of that, I'm careful about people that have presented, and there are speakers out there that have presented 2,000, 3,000 times. You have to be careful that they're keeping their material fresh.
Right.
But we've got some resources that allow us to know who's doing what and that kind of thing. And the longer I'm in it and more chair worlds I go to, I've now got friends, across the country that I can call and say, hey, you had this person, how did they do? Or I can look at the comments. So.
Right. Yeah. And again, there's a curated Vistage way, right? Of, or at least the best ones, most of them follow this version of, okay, what is the takeaway? It's not just sit and you get to, be a talking head as the speaker. It's the interaction and the workshop, and okay, what's the takeaway? And that's part of the Vistage way. Okay, what are you going to go do about this?
Right. Yes, absolutely.
Well, awesome, Jim. This has been great, one, to understand where you come from, for, in your methodology with your folks, highlighting and Vistage and its processes as well. I want to bring this home for folks, because, as we talked a little bit before, right, there's a handful of these, but I like to end with, what is a mistake, a failure, you call it misstep, a significant one if you can, that you learn from, that others could also learn from?
Anybody that thinks they want to stay in a family business, a subsequent generation, needs to work outside the business for at least 5 years. I was gone a year and a half, and it was helpful. It was very helpful. Wasn't enough. And I've also seen enough situations where it wasn't a year and a half, it was 0 years. And there are some people that can be super successful at it. So I'm not saying, that it's an absolute requirement. I will say that it's like it will turbocharge the experience. It's so valuable to go work somewhere else. And any place that I get the opportunity, if I'm working with a generation and they want to bring their kids in, I get really passionate about, for God's sake, don't let them come in full time. Summers, that's a different story. But they need to go work someplace else, and know that they can make it on their own. Understand what it's like. Ideally, if you can get them to work at one of your customers, that's even better, because then they understand the market. Yeah, it was, for me, for instance, working at GE was helpful because our customers were big companies, and being at GE, I understood what it was like to work in a big company and what some of the people I was working with had to deal with. And, we could talk for another hour about that, but yeah, that's probably the biggest. Like I said earlier, I made a ton of really expensive mistakes, and we could talk about that for a long time. But that's one thing that I think, if I had to do it over, I would have stayed away longer. I'm not saying that I wouldn't have come back, but I think there was additional benefit to be had that I didn't take advantage of.
Yeah, because I think it's multifaceted, right? One, they as a human, different perspectives and growing for them, then they can bring back, but actually not even potentially, they will bring back more to the business than if they came into the same old. And I do liken it to a Vistage group, right? Because if you just step into the same thing, that's all you know. So that is supremely knowledge. That's a knowledge bomb, because, again, and I get to deal with a lot of family businesses as well in different forms and facets. And again, many do. It is amazing what disruptive in a good way it makes the business, right? When they come back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Jim. How can, and actually I should back it up. One, I want to make sure, how do people get in touch with you, but who are you looking for to partner with, to be a part of your group?
I'm looking to meet with people who are running businesses, who don't have a place to go to vet ideas, people that are interested in learning, people that are interested in being vulnerable. Those are the highlights. And we're industry agnostic. I mean, we accept all different industries. I've got in my groups, I have everything from a bowling alley to a forging company to a company that books talent on podcasts. Literally the whole gamut. And it may sound a little cheesy, but it's not. In a chair meeting we had a couple of weeks ago, somebody pointed out that Vistage is really a gift. It's a gift to yourself, of learning about yourself, learning about your business, and improving and being on a path of improvement on an ongoing basis. But introducing somebody else to it is a gift, because you get to give them the same experience. So again, we're industry agnostic. I'll talk to anybody, even if I don't necessarily have room in my groups, because the chair community here is pretty tight, and so I know who fits with whom. I've gotten to figure that out, and I'm looking to meet people that could benefit from having a group of folks to talk to on a regular basis.
That is fantastic, and I love how you say the gift that Vistage is, and then turning it also to like allowing for others, because I'm sure I can't remember the stat, and I'll butcher it, so I won't even say it. But again, the percentage of folks that are not in a group of some sort, or don't know of operating systems, or don't have a coach or don't have a mentor, it's a staggering number, and it's just based on ignorance, not in the, they're not stupid. They just not aware, right?
Yeah, they don't know that they don't know.
Right. And so for everyone listening, give the gift of giving someone their life back potentially by introducing them to Jim. So Jim, now it's specific. How do they get in touch with you?
So my email address is jheller@vistagemichigan.com. You can go to the Vistage Michigan website and you can find me, and there's a way to connect there. I'm also on LinkedIn. There, believe it or not, there are two Jim Hellers that are Vistage chairs. There's myself, and there's one in Wisconsin. So I'm the one in Michigan. If you go on LinkedIn, there are two of us. Obviously, I'm the one in Michigan.
Yes, and it looks like this.
Yes, that looks like me. Yeah, and the other guy, Jim, I've talked to the other guy, and we've gotten to talk a couple of times, and so.
Excellent. Well, Jim, this has been fantastic. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
No, I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Again, everyone, please reach out to Jim if you're outside of Michigan. Right, Vistage is a global community, so please find someone. If you need to find someone, you can connect with Jim. Again, if you're out of state, or certainly come to me. But at minimum, if you love this episode, please share it with folks, like it, and follow us on all the platforms. And Jim, thanks again.
Thanks for tuning into The Roll Call with John Glahn. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe for more insightful conversations. Remember, discovering your true role in life is a journey worth exploring each and every day. Until next time, keep defining your path and living your authentic self. This is John Glahn signing off.